Welcome in.
Hi, thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay today. The past couple weeks have been a little difficult. But I had an all right time in class today, so
Yeah,
I'm feeling a little bit better right now.
feeling better.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last time we met, I remember you mentioned there were some things that were happening. I'm really happy right now that you're feeling pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I just was thinking about the last session, and I wanted to actually go over a little bit more about confidentiality,
Yeah, of course.
just so that I could make sure that you're completely informed about what the process of counseling feels like and looks like. So I have here a script that I would like to read to you. I do apologize for the legalese, but it's quite forward. We have here that this is a safe and non-judgmental space. Anything you tell me is completely private, an exception for three things.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is that if you tell me you have plans to hurt yourself or to kill yourself. The other one is if you have plans to hurt or kill someone else.
Mm.
And the third one is if you tell me you're being hurt by someone else. I would like to also mention that if you ever want me to break confidentiality, I would need your written or spoken consent in order to do that. That's the other caveat as well. So we can, things cannot be private if you would prefer them to not be private. That makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And we also have this limitation to confidentiality to keep you safe. And it doesn't mean that you're in trouble. It just means that we are looking out for your best interests and trying to make sure that you are completely supported in this process. Okay. So meeting together is also voluntary. That means that when you decide that all that means that you get to decide when this works for you. And usually we have a paper in which you have to sign. And if you'd like to sign that now, or if you would like to give me your verbal consent, I would love for us to continue going forward with the process, but obviously it's up to you.
I give consent for sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. So that actually concludes that part. I'm so glad we got that over with. I'm now here, ready and open to continue listening about your week and how you're feeling.
Yeah. Last time I came in, I was talking a lot about family and how I hadn't really talked to them a lot because I was worried that, you know, I've been, the model sibling for the longest time. Both my sisters are in middle school and they're doing what teenagers do, right? All kinds of social media stuff and hanging out with friends. And I never really got to do that when I was their age. I was, like I said, just doing the school thing, doing what I was supposed to, right? But then I got to college and that didn't really work so well for me. I didn't really know anybody, right? I came all this way from out there to all the way up here, and I don't know anybody over here anymore. Um, so I was feeling really lonely my first year, and then this year I started making friends, um, and I was having fun, and then I noticed I was kind of not doing what I felt like I was supposed to do anymore, and then so that made it hard to be in contact with family because I felt like I was kind of lying, kind of, hiding parts of who I am and what I was doing while I was out here. So, yeah, the past couple weeks have been pretty hard. Um, but today was good. Today was good. It's a sunny day. I went to class and I was understanding what was happening. I hadn't understood what was going on in class for a while because I hadn't, I've been half asleep in a lot of the lectures. I hadn't been reading what was going on. Um, and I was just so behind on notes and everything. But I was getting what was going on. I had my math class and my physics, and I was knowing what was going on, and it felt good to understand what was happening again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, that's really wonderful to hear that you feel this sense of um, ability to like be present in the space and feel like you're able to get what's going on in your classes. I'm curious, what changed from just recently, last week or our last session rather, to
Mhm.
now in which that change is occurring for you?
I don't know. I think it was a little bit of maybe just talking it out. I hadn't really talked to anybody about, you know, the kind of clash I was having inside myself
Mm.
about like wanting to do well, but also wanting to have fun. And so I think, I just kind of saying it out loud made me think about what was going on and what was kind of happening for myself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's part of it.
I'm hearing that you were able to verbalize the internal experience and narratives that you were enduring, and being able to have someone to share those thoughts with was really empowering for you, and it really helped you to be able to see yourself more clearly. To then seems like to change some behaviors to
Mhm.
be in more in alignment with what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, and I think before our last session, I told you I had gone out, and when I went out, I have my friends who I go out with,
Yeah.
and every once in a while, one of them will, you know, bring out some things that, make the night a little bit more fun for all of us,
Okay.
right? And so we had just had one of those nights, and then I had went to class that day, and I was just completely out of it. I couldn't even focus. I was in the way back of the lecture, which I never do. I'm usually somewhere in the middle, but I was in the way back in the dark, and that class just didn't feel really good.
Yeah.
And most classes haven't felt really good before, but that one felt really bad. And so it was a combination of like that really rough class, and I think meeting with you that last time. So yeah, just kind of, I guess, starting that journey.
Yeah, on the journey, absolutely. So I'm hearing also there's a lot that's going on. You're in this period of transition and change, and you recognize that your behaviors had a consequence that wasn't in alignment with where you wanted to be, and how you wanted to show up in your education and in your life. Um, and I'm really glad that we have the space in which you can share your thoughts freely and with no judgment. Um, I am curious though when we're thinking about um, your friends and people that you're around. Being in college obviously is a really fun, really new and invigorating time. Um, is it often? I'm curious. Like, is that something that you often partake in? Is like the party favors and things like that during times when you're with your friends, your college friends? I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens quite a bit. I have, you know, in our friend group, two or three of them have their own dealers, so
Okay.
they kind of, take turns basically offering up what they have, and you know, it's fun and it feels great, and these are my friends. These are who I choose to be around.
Yeah.
So I never really had much of a problem with any of it until that class was real difficult.
Mm. Okay. So I'm hearing that it was relatively manageable to be able to balance those two worlds, your social life with the additional substances occasionally and your academic um, requirements, like the things you envision for yourself academically. But once the classes began to get more difficult is when it was harder for you to then navigate both worlds. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's was okay balancing it. The classes were getting more difficult as I was going out more, but
Okay.
that felt like an okay trade-off
Mhm.
for what I was getting out of it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it so? It seems like at this current moment, there's a shift. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I had mentioned that one class was really hard, but there's also one thing I've been kind of guilty about, I guess. It's been really eating at me, Um, one night, I went out with some of my friends, and we wanted to go from one person's party to a bar. Um, but I don't know. We weren't really thinking straight. Nobody really wanted to pay for an Uber, and so my friend had driven us there.
Okay.
Nothing really happened, and I don't really remember much of that car ride actually. But um, rural backcountry. I know a lot of kids whose family members who have died from driving into the ditches drunk.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've dealt with that a lot growing up. So I don't know. It clicked after that night that I was like, this is like everything I didn't want to be back home, and I'm doing it here. So that was also part of it for sure.
Yeah. You really shared a lot there. That seems like a heavy load to carry, to emotionally carry. I just want to name that. I'm really proud of you for being able to be so courageous and so self-aware as well. Noticing that the things that you endured and the person that you are not the same, obviously. And you get to make that choice of how you want to live the life that you want to live, right? So thank you for sharing that. You mentioned that your upbringing was you had some instances of this kind of experience where I'm assuming with drinking, or could you tell me more about
Yeah,
that
I mean, as the oldest sibling, I had mentioned I was like kind of the model sibling. But not all my friends or people I knew in middle school and high school were the oldest, so they had older siblings. And I remember at least like 4 or 5 instances of people's I knew or like family friends or like family members whose teenage siblings or teenage kids had you know driven drunk one night or just driving unsafe in any way, right?
Yeah.
And they've gone to like funerals, and I've seen how that kind of breaks families and breaks younger siblings' hearts. And after that night, I kind of just thought about if my sisters had to go to my funeral because of that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really heavy to make that distinction or that connection rather between the life, your upbringing, and seeing other people have to endure such tragedies, and thinking whether or not you could have possibly brought that kind of, a tragedy, and your siblings having to kind of bear that, the burden of loss.
Yeah.
That's really heavy. It's really heavy. Um, as the older sibling, the oldest sibling, it sounds like you carry a lot of pressure to perform or to be a certain person. When you think of yourself now, do you feel like you're living for yourself more so, or are you living for other people? Or is it a mixture of both?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mixture of both in there. I think coming to school, doing the major that I want to do, that was mostly for other people, right? I felt like as the oldest, I had to set the example of going to college and, getting a career that you need an education for, right? Not working with my hands, not, doing any of that stuff that my parents had to do. So I got here and, it felt like not my decision for an entire year. It felt like I was just kind of going through the motions and participating in a life that wasn't fully mine. And then I made these friends and I started having fun for the first time in a long time. And that felt like my choice, my decision. But now neither of them really feel like my decision anymore. I feel like coming back into school a little bit is nice, but it still doesn't feel mine. And I feel like going out has become its own thing that it's not mine anymore either.
Okay. Could you tell me more about that? What that is for
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. School and going out are both fun for me. I've always liked learning. I've always, you know, been an academically oriented person.
Absolutely. High achiever.
Yeah, yeah. And that felt like part of me. Um, but now I don't see that as part of me. I see it as something happening, something I'm doing, as opposed to something that I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. It does.
And, the going out, the drinking, the drugs, that feels like something that I chose to do, but now it's outside of my control, kind of. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. So it sounds like you're in a period where you are going through it. Just currently, I'm curious, just based off of what I'm hearing here, is that your identity is shifting, and the way that you see yourself, perceive yourself, is there's a sense of loss there, right? Seeing yourself as a academic and now not feeling so much so as that fitting within that box. And you feel as though that there's some aspects of your life that you're not able to control. When you're talking about, drinking and being with your friends, is it something that feels compulsive? Or is it something where you feel like you mentioned, you don't feel like there's an ability to stop? Is that what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a feeling of this pressure almost to be a person that, in a sense, perform like with your friends and be with them? Is there pressure there?
Yeah. Yeah, it hasn't felt necessarily like pressure, like peer pressure, just say no, high school style.
Right.
But there definitely is that kind of like general idea of, what's the next plan? What's our next, night out? Who's gonna host the pregame, right? All these things are kind of like just like part of our weekly conversations. And as for the compulsive, not necessarily. Of course I say that, but would I turn down a shot if my friend offered me one in the kitchen? Probably not. Probably not.
It's really honest for you to mention that too. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a bit of expectation with your friends on to how things are operating within the friendship dynamic, and you feel this, requirement because this is just what has always been done in the past. So continue going forward in that same pathway, right?
Yeah.
Is it something that you still want to do? It sounds like there might be some hesitancy with that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, in the moment, there's not much hesitancy. I kind of just, I will, crack open the beer, I'll take the shot, but I don't have much desire to do it as much as I have been. It feels like there's more of, like you said, some hesitancy. But it's still coming my way, and I just don't really have the ways to say no, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which sounds silly to say that I can't say no, right? Because I'm an adult. I can totally do that, but it just doesn't cross my mind when it's right in front of me.
Right. And sometimes it's not as easy to just say no. There's relationships that you've cultivated in a sense of a bond there, in a sense that you don't want to disappoint your friends either, and you do want to have fun. So all of that makes complete sense. The need to just continue going forth on that same path. But I'm curious if we could start to think about potentially, like, I'm just leading with curiosity here. If you could live a life that's including both worlds with, your friends and also something else. But that's something else. I'm curious what that would be for you. Other.
Yeah, kind of like including a life I want to have
Okay.
would maybe include the friends. I think that's important for me to have friends. I don't know where else it would go from there. I haven't really thought about what I want my life to look like outside of what I already have. It's it's hard for me to imagine a life where I make all the choices. So I haven't really given it much thought.
Yeah, that's completely understandable too. Especially, you are a young adult. You're just starting out the adulthood experience, and during this phase of life, there's so many transitions, so much learning and growing, and just coming into your own self. Especially when we think about the other ways in which your experience pertains to being the oldest, sibling, being the oldest, being the eldest, and having all these expectations and having a path already being designed for you, and knowing what steps to take. And now you're in the process where you're creating your own life on your own terms, and that could feel scary and it can feel daunting to find ways to fully honor yourself when you're figuring out who you are honoring, if that makes sense. So I'm just very curious to know more about how you're feeling and how if how those experiences are for you currently, and kind of just discovering more about the nuances of that experience. So if you don't mind, I would love to know more about this. If you could tell me more about this last week as well, about kind of what was happening, some highlights, some things that also some lowlights as well, and then also what are you feeling? Are there any? Do you have any visions for next week?
Yeah, this past week, like I had mentioned, that one physics class where I really knew what was going on, it felt really good.
Yeah.
And I haven't had that feeling in a class in a while.
Yeah.
Certainly not this semester. And I kind of want to just keep having that go forward.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be every week, but it just doesn't feel attainable in some aspects. I had thought about calling my mom for the first time this past week. I didn't do it, but I thought about it.
Okay.
And as far as lowlights go, I had skipped one other class, which I do from time to time, and I think that's one of the things I want to stop doing. I want to have some consistency there in going to class.
Okay.
I skipped that one class, and I was hungover. So I just laid in bed all day that day, and that was rough. Well, and then into the next day, which is when I went to that physics class. So I kind of had a full dip into a high. So an alright week.
Yeah.
Ending better than most of my other weeks have been so far.
And that's a success in itself, for sure. Would you consider it success in your own perspective?
Yeah, I would consider it like an accidental success, but a success nonetheless, yeah.
Okay. When you're looking back at your week and you're seeing the moments of success and highlights, what are some of the takeaways that you get from that? What is the information that it tells you?
It tells me that maybe not going to class hungover might be a great way to be able to focus.
Okay.
It tells me that when I am present and can apply myself in class, I probably will understand it a lot better.
Okay.
And it tells me that despite this semester being really rough and rocky and me being really drunk for most of it,
Okay.
I'm still a capable student.
You absolutely are a capable student, for sure. And I'm hearing that there's a lot of a pattern that I'm recognizing is that there's a lot of self-talk that's really negative.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a bit of criticizing yourself.
Mm.
Would you consider yourself someone that sometimes, you know, beats on yourself? Like your thoughts can be kind of heavy towards yourself?
I see them as kind of just being honest.
Honest.
You know,
okay.
I have this long history of just being real about what's going on, and if what's going on isn't great, I'm gonna be honest to myself about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's important to be honest with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how change happens is when we gain awareness to what's going on and what we want and what we don't want. But I'm just thinking about the ways in which we could possibly reframe the idea of, well, being hungover wasn't as pleasant, you know, obviously, but you took care of yourself. And you noticed that the next day you were able to come to class and be present and really gain the information that you needed to as a student. And I feel as though, is it possible that we can kind of look back also on the week and think about some of the times where you did go through things that were really negative or really hard? And what were the things that you did to kind of help yourself, to meet yourself where you were at?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been much of a meet myself where I'm at kind of person. I'm either do it or don't do it, and if you do it, you know, you better be good at it. And if you don't do it, then you should do something else. Try better.
Yeah, one moment. My apologies. Oh. Okay. My apologies for the interruption. I actually didn't put out the sign saying that this room was in use, so that is my apologies. Before we close out, because I'm recognizing that we're also in interest of time as well, I want to just have a space for you to know what we are looking at to move towards for next week. What would you say your goals would be for yourself right now?
I think my goal is for sure to just finish off this semester strong. It's barely midterm season, but I feel like this is like kind of the tipping point where it's like the semester either goes really tanked out, horrible, or I pull it through.
Okay.
And I think finding a way to balance the fun and the school is really what I want. I want to be good at that.
Okay.
Soon, rather than later, right?
Okay. I'm hearing that you just want to find balance. You want to be able to have the academic success that you've had in the past while being able to step into your own, finding community, and being able to really enjoy yourself as a person, as a young adult. Okay. I think we're still on the same, it sounds like we are still continuing on the path of the same goal that we had from the first session.
Yeah.
So I would like for us to continue moving forward in that direction, potentially doing a couple of art activities, actually, if you're open to it, for next week where we can, where we're able to identify some of these support systems in your life. And also start thinking about what other aspects of your life you can explore, parts of your identity that you can continue to develop as well. So yeah, I do have some activities in mind for you that I think you may like, and I'll give you plenty of options so we can see if they mesh with you well, or if there's other activities that we can potentially do instead.
For sure.
Doors open, and I'm completely here to support you.
All right, thank you.
Of course, it's really good to see you, and I'm hoping to see you next our next session.
Yeah, see you next session.
Yes, of course.